Hey Eastview, hope you all are doing well. Happy Monday. This is Connor and I'm excited to be bringing you another Devo. I'm also excited to share that after Easter, our plan is to move from 3 to 5 Devos. So instead of just Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, our plan is to add in Tuesday and Thursday as well. So be looking for those new Devos starting after Easter. If you subscribe and get the Devos in your inbox, you'll still get them that way. They'll also live on YouTube. We're excited to be bringing you the Gospel of John after Easter in a Devo format. So be on the lookout for those. Yesterday, our friend Brandon, who's a domestic church planner out of San Diego, he preached an incredible message, really talking about what do we do in the crazy moments when things don't go our way. And in fact, he started off with this story of talking about how his family went south of the border to stay at a hotel, do a getaway. And one of the excursions was to go horseback riding. So him, his wife, his 4 kids get on horses, and it started off as a peaceful horse ride on the beach, which sounds amazing. And it quickly turned into chaos when one of his daughter's horses took off, went one direction, and then his wife's horse followed suit and went another direction. And it was in that moment that Brandon describes that when things don't go our way and things get crazy, what do you do? What's our response? And so he started off with this question verbatim. He says, how do we respond in those caballo locos moments? Maybe that question sits with you today. What do you do when things don't go your way? And he comes from Mark chapter 8, talking about one of Jesus's miracles, when the miracle kind of went different than the people expected, who brought their friend to get healed, and for the man himself who was going to be healed of his blindness. It's one of Jesus' unique miracles. So let's read about that and then we'll unpack it a bit what Brandon talked about. It says this, Mark chapter 8, starting in verse 22. They came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. And when he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" He looked up and said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." And once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. And then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. And Jesus sent him home, saying, "Don't even go into the village." This miracle, as Brandon points out in the sermon, is unique among Jesus' other miracles, because all the other miracles that Jesus does is kind of like an instant healing. Whether it's making a guy walk who couldn't walk, healing someone who is sick, they go from an ailment or an illness to being healed. This one is more of a 2-step process where Jesus spits on his hands, or maybe in the dirt, however it works, and he puts the spit with his hand on the guy's face. First time it happens, he can see a little more, people look like trees. And then it appears that Jesus does the same thing again. And when he puts his hand on the man's face, takes his hands off, the guy can see. By the way, if you haven't watched this sermon yet, I'll put the link in the description below, because Brandon goes into a lot of more detail and insight. And it's really powerful and helpful, especially if you're someone who's going through moments where you feel like there hasn't been breakthrough in your life, or you're waiting on God to move. This sermon really helped. Well, back to the story. So the miracle was a 2-step process, right? And it was kind of weird because Jesus, it seemed a little unnecessary for him to have to spit in the guy's face. And so one of the questions that Brandon poses is, have you been in a moment where you felt like Jesus spit in your face? Where you almost felt like, instead of fixing or healing or bringing resolution to a problem that you have, it feels like God kind of like half fixed it, didn't fully fix it, almost feels like a tease. Well, instead of the man retreating and being frustrated that he isn't fully healed, he stays by Jesus. And then Brandon kind of ends his sermon with this line that describes how the man stood by Jesus instead of walking away. It says, Brandon said, in the midst of the mess, it's the miracle that emerges. So instead of leaving Jesus out of being frustrated because he's only partially healed, he stays close, and Jesus ends up putting his hand again on his eyes, and then he can fully see. The miracle happens, but he kind of has to go through the mess of getting spit on his face, as disgusting as that is. I don't know what your week looks like. I don't know what crazy or hard or things that you don't even know are going to happen. I don't know what your week looks like. What we do know is that in the difficult moments, when we feel like there's spit in our face, we feel like things aren't going our way, instead of running to anything else, would you run to Jesus this week? We love you all. Check out our next Devos Wednesday and Friday this week.